Today sees the official launch of the 2018 Poppy Appeal. It's happening at 6 locations around the country, and at each location there'll be messages from the First World War generation to reflect the centenary of the end of that conflict. The main launch is happening at Greenwich in southeast London, where Lauren Moss joins us from now. Lauren.
Yes, and this is just one of a series of installations across the UK launching today, marking the start of this year's Poppy Appeal and 100 years since the end of the First World War. And it is quite a sight to behold. It is 6 metres high, and every part of this poppy structure is symbolic. It's connected to the ground by a series of red threads, each of them with a message written by somebody who was affected by that First World War generation. Just to read one of them out to you, if I can see it there, it says, "Thank you to the First World War generation of children who shaped our world." Some very poignant messages here, and that's the point of this year's appeal. I'm joined now by 2 people who can tell me more about that. Firstly, we'll start talking to Alex Owen from the Royal British Legion. Alex, tell me about this structure and how it sort of came about.
Well, Lauren, for the last 5 years, all of our centenary activity has been about the fallen, quite rightly, with the poppies in the moat back in 2014 and all the other stuff that's happened since then. This year, though, we're trying to ask the nation to remember those that didn't just sacrifice their lives, but lived through the First World War. Remember the 80% of people that came back from the front and had to rebuild Britain, as well as all the women that stayed at home and fought for the right to vote, that worked in munitions factories, that worked as nurses in hospitals for the wounded. And the Commonwealth as well. Let's think about the Commonwealth, the 1.5 million of the Indian Army that came across and fought for us in Europe and Mesopotamia.
Tell me about these threads that we can see connecting the poppy structure to the ground. It's supposed to be very symbolic, showing how it's woven into today's society, isn't it?
So on each of these threads are related to one of the 6 themes of thank you, and each of them is geographically orientated with another location across the country. So each thread literally weaves through the fabric of our nation, as did the First World War 100 years ago.
Why is the Poppy Appeal so important?
The Poppy Appeal is hugely important. We're trying to raise £50 million this year, which is a record target for us, because we can then give back to that, to the serving community, both past and present, and their families, who have made an outstanding contribution for us, as they did 100 years ago in the First World War as well.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm joined now by Lewis Moody, England Rugby Union world champion. You have personal connections to the First World War. Tell me about the connections to that conflict.
Yes, well, so through my name, Lewis Walton Moody, my great-grandfather went and served with the British Expeditionary Force in 1914, so it was one of the first regiments, the Royal Sussex, to encounter the Germans during the Battle of Mons. He thankfully survived the war, which is why I'm here today, but there were so many other members of my extended family, my great-uncles, 3 brothers, in fact, so Ernest, Albert, and one other that didn't come back, and even their sisters who married, so 3 brother-in-laws that didn't come back either. So it's a very personal connection, but also from my position as the RFU's Great War Ambassador, remembering the 27 England internationals that also didn't come back.
A couple of years ago, you visited the cemeteries in northern France where so many of the fallen are remembered. What was the impact like that on yourself?
Do you know what? They're such incredibly peaceful places. It's so impactful on you. I think you just need to take time to wander and actually take in everything that's going on. But one of the biggest memories that I've had was taking over a group of young students and coaches from different backgrounds, from Scotland, Ireland, Wales and England. And actually, when they got there, realising that 3 of their ancestors, without knowing, were all commemorated in the same cemetery. So it suddenly unites and makes you realise how the First World War connects us all still to this day, and how important it is to remember.
Speaking of that importance, it is 100 years since the First World War ended. Why do you think it's so important that the younger generation, lots of children here today, you remember and know about what happened?
I think it's that legacy piece, isn't it? Like with the poppies this year, 7 million going out, they'll have gold writing emblazoned on the leaf itself. It's trying to connect that younger generation to, maybe the mistakes of the past. So it's not forgetting, it's wearing that poppy with pride to remember and respect those that went and served, like my great-grandfather and his generation, but remember the mistakes that were made so we don't ever end up in that situation again.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Thank you, Alex. There are 14 other installations across the UK. They're on display to the public until Monday, the 29th.
Lauren, thank you very much. Lauren Moss there in Greenwich for us.